Hello! Welcome in, everyone. Today, I want to talk to you about a game very near and dear to my heart, Path of Exile. This game, I have logged way too many hours in, but the reason is for that, it allows you to build your character and how to basically play the game and just kind of whatever way you want to. And so, I thought it'd be cool to show off my most custom build this past Path of Exile League, my favorite build, really, that I've made so far. It's just a really silly build. I mean, it works well, but at the end of the day, like, this isn't optimal. This is not optimal Path of Exile I'm playing here. But it's cool. At least I think so, and so that's why we're going to take a look at it today. I think to start us off, let me dump out my inventory. But then we're going to just jump into a map, and I'll kind of talk about the build. This is a tier 16 map. This is the highest tiers of normal maps you're able to do in the game, if you don't know anything about Path of Exile. It looks like I don't even have any scouring orbs, so I have to go and get that so I can make this a rare map. But basically, yeah, this is kind of like what people expect to be able to do when they play a build. They want to play through the campaign of Path of Exile, and then they want to be able to map all the way up to tier 16s, which I have been doing with this build. So at the very least, it can do that. I don't think it's like the best build ever, which I've kind of already said, but it's not about being the best sometimes, you know? At least for me, it's about having something cool that works. So let's jump into this underground sea, and I'll kind of show you what we're dealing with here. So my build is a Spark build. It is a Spark build that utilizes totems to generate a ton of Sparks. Thing is, this isn't a new type of build. It's existed for a long time. But the way the game has gone, Spark has kind of fallen to the wayside in a lot of ways, and so have kind of totem builds. Like, totem builds still have their place in the game, but they're usually like here for boss killing, and like, you know, when Spark totems were a thing, it was a long time ago. Like, I haven't really seen anyone do a Spark totem build as of recently. But as you can see, like, the build does enough damage, right? It does enough damage to clear tier 16. It's not fast. It's not that fast, but it has a ton of Sparks, and to me, it's just so much fun to have so many Sparks on the field at once. And so let's talk about, I guess, some of the other things I've done with the build. So if you haven't noticed, one of the biggest parts of the build is down here. I have all these flasks that are just always going, and that's because I took, or this character is a Scion with the Pathfinder node, which I can show real quick. So this node allows me to gain flash charges basically every 3 seconds. And I've taken a lot of flask nodes so that I get a lot more charges and I use a lot less charges, and my flask lasts longer. And the goal of that is to basically kind of compensate for Sparks' weaknesses and get a lot of power out of my flasks. So I've got lots of defensive power with Taste of Hate. I've got tons of additional projectiles with Dying Sun, and Vessel of Vinctar allows me to shock and get lightning penetration, I believe. Yeah. Which is also just way better than if I haven't focused all my stuff into flasks. It also allows me to go Mind Over Matter for my defenses and use a bit Mana Flask. Originally I wanted to use an Enduring Mana Flask and maybe get some Righteous Fire stuff in there as well. But the Enduring Flask nerf a league or two ago ended up being too great, at least for this build. There might be some other builds out there that can use Enduring Mana Flask, but I don't think, at least from my experimentations, that it has been worth using for this build. But yeah, man, just look at all these Sparks. It's lagging my computer. I'm sure it's not going to be the best frame rate on the video, but it's just so funny. And you know, it's a lot of damage. And one of the reasons why it's there's so many is because this is actually a Spork build. That is right. You get to hold up a Spork when you play this build. I kind of like to think of the totems as a Spork. and every time the spark hits something, it splits into two more projectiles. But because I actually have Awakened Fork, it gets to do that twice. So basically what I'm trying to say is that whenever a spark hits the thing, it's going to turn into another spark, which then that spark has the opportunity to turn into another spark. So like we're really just generating so many sparks here, and enemies can be hit multiple times by the same spark, or the same cast of sparks. So this allows you to actually have like pretty decent single target. And I don't think it's like a crazy boss killer or something like that, but when I get all my totems down, and I get my curse up, and I, you know, get Wave of Conviction going, like, it's not bad damage. But, yeah, so that's, like, the main crux of the build. I would also say that the other thing is that, you know, as being a totem build, we use Soul Mantle. And when you use Soul Mantle, you need some way to not be affected by all these curses, because that's the big downside. Like, whenever your totems die, you're going to get hit by a random curse. As you can see, like, all my curses right here. So what I've done isn't anything original. It's just use the Viridi's Veil unique helmet, which I'll show you after this map. You can dive in to the gear and whatnot. But basically, it makes it so that I'm not affected by any of these curses, even though they're on me, which also gives me a lot of power. You know, nothing like can curse me, which is super cool, and I get a lot of power out of another unique that like revolves around curses that I'll show you after. So like, we use that, and we use the flasks to basically get like just a lot of damage out of this with all the sparks hitting multiple times. But yeah, so as you can see the playstyle, like, I didn't even use my Valorous Fire there, could have done that for more damage on the boss. And I've been using Wave of Conviction linked with, I think it's just Blast Chain Mine. I'll look at it later, but one of the mine supports and power, like, I can't remember what it's called, but the support that generates power charges, which we'll go over all this stuff later, but that allows me to kind of get some power and frenzy charges for mapping. Although, I think the current version of the build I'm on isn't actually crit, because I don't have enough room on the passive tree to go crit and also have all the flask stuff. Anyway, so let's look at the gear. So like I was saying, we use Viridi's Veil, and we end up putting in Arcane Cloak into here, and that's actually a lot of another big source of power here. Because we have so much mana, we get a big damage boost from Arcane Cloak. It adds a ton of lightning damage, especially because we also have Divergent, and Viridi's Veil gives it +2 levels, and we also have the Arcane Cloak enchant. We're able to get a big flat lightning damage boost. And one other thing too is that I've invested into Duration, which allows our sparks to stay out longer, but it also increases the length of time for these buffs that come up. So like for Arcane Cloak, for example. So my Arcane Cloak pretty much lasts like 8 or 9 seconds, I think. And that also means I have a Arcane Surge effect there on it too, which, yeah, max level Arcane Surge for more spell damage, and it gives you mana regen too, right? Yeah. And that lasts a long ass time. It lasts super long. So, yeah, I mean, that's like the crux of the build is these two items. I have a +1 totem shield, which didn't even show off the, I actually have a zealotry totem that could do even more damage. But just for like general mapping, like, it takes a little bit longer, and it's not even necessary a lot of the time. So you can have 7 spark totems otherwise. Cast speed's huge for this build, because totems give you such a big penalty. And the more sparks, you know, more cast speed, more sparks, so that's fun. We have mana rolls there. Again, all of our flasks, we already talked about that. I've got some crit, some cast speed. Yeah, like, that's pretty much all there's to say about the gear. So I'll just talk about the passive tree a little more. Using Elemental Overload and this Lightning Mastery to get just like really high damage rolls off lightning damage. Because the thing about lightning damage, if you don't know, is that it has the highest range of damage in the game. So taking this Lightning Mastery, which masteries are new to this to this update, I should say, in Path of Exile, Making it lucky means it's going to roll the damage twice when you hit something with a lightning skill. And it's going to take the higher roll, which when you have such a huge range with lightning damage, ends up being like a pretty big damage increase. Combined with Elemental Overload and not like worrying about critting too much, getting 40% more elemental damage there is pretty big. Yeah, we have Control Destruction, so we don't crit like super often, so we're getting that. We're still getting Elemental Overload when we crit occasionally for like 8 seconds, but we're not critting every time, which is pretty big. You know, here's all the flask nodes. Ton of flask nodes over here. And yeah, we've got like some decent cluster jewels here. These could be like way better, to be honest, but they'll work, you know. You get Onslaught, you get the attack and cast speed. This is pretty nice. I mean, you need a lot more of these nodes to actually like sustain power charges with Mana Flask, but like it's decent. Sometimes you'll be able to keep your power charges up. I've got a Watcher's Eye with the only mod I really cared about was the Clarity mod for defenses. So, you know, that gives me 30 plus 10 plus another 8 from the Hierophant node here of damage taken for life. So almost 50%. It's 48%. Still pretty good. And yeah, got the Agnostic, so like my mana regen is just keeping my life always topped off. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. If I were to do this build again though, I probably would drop all the flash stuff. Like I'd probably just go crit, go Hierophant. I think that's probably gonna end up being better. You'll probably be tankier with a better like life pool, and probably you might end up doing more damage. I just think it's so much fun to like run quickly with flasks and, you know, use Dying Sun all the time and stuff, so that's kind of why I went this direction. But if you really wanted to like push this build, I think Hierophant's probably better. This is definitely like one of my favorite builds I ever played. It's not the best build, but it has so many sparks, and that was the only goal I really set out to achieve, is to get a lot of sparks and to be able to do the end game. But if you just want to put out a ton of sparks and still be able to do tier 16 maps, then by all means, you could play this build.